Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comics Evolve, where we discuss all things around comics media culture with your hosts, Andy, Jarian, and Alex.
Welcome to Comics Evolve with myself, Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
And we are back live this week to discuss The Boys, episode 6 and 7. But before we get into that, how you doing, Alex?
I'm good. I wish I could say that I've done something like in the last week or so since we've been on and read something or been watching something comic related. But unfortunately, the only thing I've watched has been Billions. I don't know if you've ever seen that show.
I have not. I've heard about it, but I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's such a good show. But I've watched, I think, most of it up until the final season. But I decided I was going to go back and rewatch all the way back to the beginning, and then make it all the way up to the current season, the most recent one. So unfortunately, I haven't really been doing too much. Looking forward to. I know we got some new Deadpool and Wolverine stuff, so. I know we'll probably discuss that a little bit and talk about that today. And yeah, looking forward to discussing the Boys' recent episodes, even though that one with Tech Knight was brutal. So
yeah, we'll get to that, and we'll have to tread lightly since we're a PG show here.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to tread that one lightly. I'm just checking the stream stuff. Looks like we're good for the most part. For some reason, Twitter/X is being weird today, and we're still fighting the issue with the Facebook piece, but looks like we're live on YouTube, Trovo, Kick, and Twitch. So it looks like we're good to go there. Let me just post a message real quick. So let's talk to the group real quick. I've been watching Workaholics.
I don't think I've ever watched that.
That show was hilarious, and I don't see how they can make that show today.
That's how I feel about The Office. Unfortunately, like The Office would not be able to be made today. I know they've talked about like a revival of that show or potentially doing something like a remake of it or something. But man, that show was an early 2000s thing. When did Workaholics come out?
It has 7 seasons. I gotta double check when that came out, but it had 7 seasons though. So
okay.
But yeah, that was fun. My wife's only seen parts of it, and she saw someone I was watching it and was cracking up laughing. I'm trying to think if we watched anything else comic related. I won't bring up that I did watch Blue Beetle again this morning, and I do have some Blue Beetle news. And that movie, man, I'll talk more about it when we get to the news. Because I wish that it wasn't just gonna, how they're doing things with the new DCU. DCU.
I love Blue Beetle, and I'll just say this: I wasn't a big Blue Beetle fan until Jaime Reyes became the Blue Beetle, and I wasn't that big of a fan of Ted Kord or Dan Garrett and everything. And I know that they were gonna. They made it look like at the end of that movie that they were going to expose a little bit more about Kord and kind of show a little bit. And I know they're talking about potentially doing like a TV show that's going to be animated and stuff for that. And I'm really sad about that. I would have liked to have seen more live action, and the movie was not bad at all. I just had a few little problems with Kaji Da, the Scarab. Yeah. But, I thought the suit looked fantastic for, something comic related. I thought it was amazing in comparison to a lot of the stuff. And I love the Blue Beetle stuff in the New 52 run, and that costume, I just loved the way it looked on screen. It was so good, man. I loved it. So
yeah, I love it too. And I love that they cast Sholo from Cobra Kai in it as well to play Jaime Reyes, and just the whole family dynamic. And even George Lopez was great in the film. And I'm hoping when they come back, they do something. I know we talked before about Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. And we'll talk about some potential casting news later. But, I hope to see if they come back to live action with Blue Beetle, that they still team those two up no matter who's playing Booster Gold.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the animated thing isn't just like them to kind of put that character out in the pasture and then just kind of not do much with him. Because, like, to be honest, like, I think out of a lot of the DC stuff that has been made, like, in recent years, like, I didn't really enjoy a lot of it as much as I enjoyed that Blue Beetle movie, you know? I was a huge Flash fan, and, you know, that movie came out, and I was with all of that and didn't really understand, you know, the hype that they made for that movie was that it was like one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. So, you know, very disappointed by that. So, yeah, I hope they do more with him. And that kid was such a good casting, I think, for Jaime Reyes. So,
Yeah.
you know.
So let's get into the boys. So we have last time we were here, we talked about episode 5, which was Beware the Jabberwock, my son. It looks like RMC's here on the YouTube, so I did post the YouTube stuff over to the groups and stuff, and I show that out there. So welcome RMC. Let us know your thoughts as we get into episode 6, Dirty Business. Now, this episode, I didn't think they were going to top the Steam Room earlier in this season at the convention.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, but they sure did with
Mhm.
episode 6. So
Jeez.
we find out there's a soup that's like Spider-Man, but his webs come out of a different location on his body. And there's this event going on, like this big donor political event type thing where you have Homelander and Sister Sage and A-Train and Firecracker there. And Newman's there also, and they're going to get into their plan to kind of devise their steps to kind of take over the country going forward. And so we find the team at Tech Knight's mansion, which Tech Knight is coming off like Batman in a way,
Mhm.
and he has billions of dollars. He controls the Prism system, so they infiltrate the party by basically impersonating Webweaver, who is their take on Spider-Man, and
Mhm.
Huey is the person to do that. Now, I just want to say, episode 6 and 7, Huey is really on this terrible arc right now. I feel bad for him. You know, episode 6, you know, he lost his dad last episode, the whole situation with his mom coming back. This season, I think the biggest toll has been on Huey.
Mhm.
And now he comes to this party, which some nefarious things happen. And then we get in episode 7, you'll find out even some more nefarious things happen to him. So, what are your thoughts going into this party and how they're infiltrating this?
So I thought it was really funny how they kind of introduced Webweaver right off the bat, right? Like, because they show his house and they just show webs everywhere, all throughout his house and everything. And I got a good laugh out of that. Like, and you know, he's a drug addict. He's looking for his fix, and basically they use that to get his suit. And I think he's like, you know, they give him his fix, and he's like knocked out for like 48 hours or something like that. And then they take his suit and do whatever. And yeah, I mean, I thought it was kind of crazy. I did not expect it to take that turn, I guess, in the show where, you know, they go down to the tech cave, if you will. And Huey's like all excited because, you know, he was a Tech Knight fan. I remember earlier on in the season, I think he said he went to go buy a doll with his dad when he was a kid for Tech Knight. So, like, this is kind of like a dream come true for Huey, right? Like, even though he's kind of against them, it's kind of like playing on his childhood aspirations of seeing something that he was a big fan of at one time. And it is not what he expects down there, right? And I'm very surprised that they bring Ashley in, and Ashley's like, oh, I'm a part of this too. You know, I was like, oh, like, did not expect that.
Well, it
And
makes sense though because the whole thing with Cameron Coleman and how she was that whole relationship and dynamic between them two, so it kind of makes sense.
And they've got that dude who's like the gimp over there who's like chained up, and I think Tech Knight at one point is like, oh, you know, that's my former sidekick or whatever, you know, just so funny. And you know, it kind of reminded me a little bit how, you know, I guess this is more of like a Batman style character, and Webweaver's kind of like a Spider-Man style character, that this was going to be kind of like a twisted version of like the Iron Man / Spider-Man relationship in the MCU, kind of just with like a Batman more type character. But yeah, I mean, like I was incredibly shocked that they drugged that scene out where he's down in the tech cave as long as they did. I mean, it was funny. It was kind of like, oh, like at some points, like it was very. I wasn't a big fan. I was a little bit uncomfortable in some parts, but I mean that's what this show does, right? It makes you uncomfortable. So, yeah, I mean the party was interesting. We see Sister Sage. She ends up getting shot in the head. And I think one of the funniest moments in that party is when she's like sitting there and she's like nodding at Newman, and Newman's like nodding, and then she like nods back, and then she like keeps nodding, and it's like Newman's like, oh, like, whatever. But yeah, I mean, like it was pretty interesting to see all that. We saw Tech Knight in Gen V.
Yep.
So we kind of really had him explored more in that show, and we know how
the
twisted.
whole thing.
yeah, how he's obsessed with holes, and how twisted he is. So kind of coming into this, I guess if you hadn't really watched Gen V, you wouldn't really know much about him. But yeah, I mean, like I thought it was just really funny. I did not expect them to go as nasty as they went in this episode. So
yeah, this almost takes. I think this might be more gruesome that we've seen, or they've gone to another level past what we saw with the whole soupgasm thing. I think last season.
Yeah, Herogasm or whatever
Herogasm,
it was.
Or it's called. Yeah, so I think this kind of takes the cake, and they only want Tech Knight because he controls the prism systems, right? He can put the people that they see as their enemies in these camps, right? And start doing that. Plus, he has the money and that kind of stuff. So, because it's kind of interesting too, because Tech Knight kind of got set aside after the whole Gen V holes thing. They brought him back for the VotCon thing to show his series, but then he's mostly been kind of quiet, for the most part until this one. And before I go on, we got a chat here from RMC. Almost grown to expect the worst from the boys. When we were getting ripped in half, Long Ways was wild, and Kimco's leg too gnarly. Yes, we'll get to that too. When we get to episode 7, so that's coming up. We'll talk about the fate of Web Weaver and what's going on with Butcher and the scientist. But M has a panic attack. A-Train, is fully on their side now, on the boys' side, it seems. Especially with the stuff that Firecracker's saying, the kind of remarks of the party, even Newman, we have the commercial or the trailer of her head exploding, which basically was her visualizing that because of the things that they're saying to her, and just, the people in the politicians that have the power and their mindsets and the things they say. So some different dynamics here.
Tech Knight had a weird line to A-Train that I was just like, I don't like this dude, like Tech Knight, like it was very, like, I did not like it. And A-Train, you can tell, is very uncomfortable. And I think when A-Train takes Mother's Milk to the hospital and drops him off, and that little boy sees him being a hero, like, it's kind of like, he says it later on. I don't really think it's like, that surprising, but he says it in like the next episode, but he's like, basically like, you've ruined me because like I've had a taste of what it's like to actually be a hero now, and now like I want that. And I feel like they'll probably end up setting this up down the road where like in season 5, A-Train will be gone all this time and just disappeared. He took his family and hid, but he'll come back in and like make a run to try and help, like, stopping Homelander or something, because he's had that taste now. And A-Train is, in my opinion, one of the strongest members of the 7, because like we saw him when he was training, he was pulling like a locomotive, like, just moving forward. He's super fast. I would argue that he's probably faster than Homelander. And he's run through people. I mean, we started the show when he literally ran through somebody, and it was just like, it didn't even
he was girlfriend.
So I think he's a pretty strong character, and even though he's afraid of Homelander, I think we're going to end up with him kind of getting this taste of what it's like to be seen as a true hero. And he made that remark, oh, there was no cameras or anything, but the little boy saw me, and like I could see, like, he was like, oh wow, that's a hero, basically. And now he's going to want to do more heroic things, I think. So A-Train is a phenomenal character.
And it goes back to what his brother said to him about, all your stuff has been staged, it's been fake, that kind of stuff, and how his nephew should not look up to him, that kind of stuff. And it seems like those things with the relationship with his brother and his past and that kind of stuff, that he wants to fix that. And he sees by probably fixing that is by helping out the boys and also becoming a real hero. The line that Tech Knight said was on the lines of "You're fast, but I don't think you were fast enough to get away from my daddy or something like that, or my great granddaddy." You know,
Yeah.
referring to that back in those times when he probably was a slave and tried to be a runaway as a slave that Tech Knight's ancestors would have got him, which is kind of a harsh line. But you see a lot of that too, because like I said, Newman, Sister Sage, Firecracker, you know, by calling them uppity and some of the comments that Firecracker makes as well. So yeah, you can see that. We see the boys have a plan to infiltrate. That's what Huey being Webweaver.
Yep.
They plant the listing device in that room because of Sister Sage's getting shot in the head and basically her brain's still healing. She's basically lobotomized and of a child. So Newman steps in to save the day because Homelander was basically sinking in that conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know what Newman is just saying that to get things to go along. What role she's playing? Is she starting to get power happy because she knows she's going to be the next in line here? It'd be interesting to see how this season rounds out with season 8 named the Assassination Run to see what happens. But it's interesting too because like they left out the Deep and Black Noir out of the party, like little kids. They left them behind to stay home and not with the adults too as well, I noticed.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like, it kind of feels like to me at this point, you know, and especially after episode 7, that everybody's kind of fallen into, they have their own plans, right? Like, it seems like Newman's kind of trying to make her own way. She's got her own stuff kind of going on. Homelander seems like he's going off the rails. He doesn't really want to trust anybody anymore, you know, towards episode 7. You know, Sister Sage, I still think, and we'll get to episode 7, but I still think after that episode, even though what happens to her, I still feel like she's got like a plan and this is all part of it kind of type of thing, you know?
Exactly.
And this is one of those things, because like you can't be the smartest person in a universe unless you are literally sky view over the board, right? Like, you know, so it almost feels like that. And, you know, there's a point that's made about where they're worried about who, you know, the leak is basically in Vought. And it seems like she already knew who that was. And it's pretty evident in the next episode that she did know that, you know. So, you know, kind of going forward, I think that this show really kind of leans into, it's just all out chaos all the time, right? And that's where we're kind of getting to with all the characters. And it, you know, Homelander is starting to remind me of how in the MCU when John Walker became Captain America, how when he kind of like snapped and he would hear that high pitch.
Yep.
And like that's kind of like, I feel like the moment right before Homelander's at right now, where he's just about to lose it, you know, just like lose control, which I mean, he's already crazy, but like it just seems like he's just about to snap because of everything that's going on. So it's like Homelander's like trying to get everybody in this party in his pocket. And you're right, he flounders around and does not do a very good job because, like, yeah, he's basically marketed as a superhero, but he's not a public speaker and he's not good at getting people to fall in line. So, you know, at the end of this episode and going into episode 7, and I'll talk about episode 7 a little bit, but we see Homelander, you know, previous episodes we've seen Homelander, he's like collecting his hair and stuff like that. And it seems like he's just like losing it. And, you know, we of course will see more of Ryan in the next episode, but I don't think it was episode 6. It might've been episode 7 where he kind of makes the phone call to Ryan and it's just like, hey, I know you don't want to do this, but you just go ahead and do that because like you should, like, hey, thanks, love you, bye, like hangs up the phone, like whatever. It just seems like everybody's so spread out right now in this episode. And everybody's like trying to achieve their own goals and everything. So I think kind of going into episode 7, it's definitely chaotic, and of course it gets more chaotic going into the next episode. So
yeah, I think you do have a point there with Homelander and that high pitch, and I can't remember if he's had that high pitch the entire time in The Boys, but I also know that Maeve stabbed him in the ear last season in that final finale in the showdown with Soldier Boy. So I'm trying to think, did that pitch start this season because of that, or has that always been there? I can't remember. The other thing too is that, you know, the reason they find out that Cameron Coleman wasn't the leak is because Tech Knight's dead. And so basically what happens with that, just to kind of round things out for this episode, there's two big things here. So Tech Knight is dead, killed by his butler that basically raised him after he found out that the camps are going to happen.
Crazy twist, right? I did
yeah.
not expect the butler to come in and be like, hey, hang on, he's a piece of garbage. Like,
Yeah.
let me just go ahead and do this, you know? Like, wow. So
And then we find out that his sidekick, that Webweaver was auditioning to be the new one, is the one that helped the boys out by his computer and transferring money and getting Tech Knight to, to let them know what the plans were as far as why he's involved with this and so forth. And that's what prompts the butler to finish him off. Because it's kind of funny, too, because Andy's stabbing him and he's enjoying it because, of course, of the whole role that he does and the way he is, he was enjoying the pain and so forth. But the last funniest part of that is that how he finds out that basically he found out that Huey was impersonating Webweaver because he didn't know the safe word. When Ashley was basically, anyways. So he kept blurting out random things, and that's when Tech Knight caught on to him and all that kind of stuff. And he pulled it out, his mask off, and found out it was Huey, was going to torture him, make new holes. And then it's funny because the way that scene ends is that he goes, the butler basically tells him the safe word was Indeha.
it's so funny.
And it's funny because Tech Knight tells him it's the thing you love the most, and which was kind of obvious, right? And so that was kind of hilarious to round up the episode. But the big thing from this episode, which we all kind of expected, is that we had the Fight Club moment with Butcher, right? So it's funny as Butcher is having this once Samir tells him that a virus of that strength to kill Homelander is going to basically wipe everyone out. You have Butcher's wife, and you have Joe Kessler?
Joe Kessler.
Yeah, Joe Kessler going back and forth, and he tells her to shut up. And that's when he's like, wait a minute, you guys can hear each other? And that's the moment we find out that Joe's the one that Joe died because of something. I guess Butcher did not save him. Joe died. And that's who comes out of Butcher when Butcher is in danger and has been protecting Butcher. But the other funny thing there, too, is they go back and we have those Fight Club moment scenes where we see early on, we first get Joe and the boys and Butcher at the table pouring the whiskey or whatever in the coffee cup. It's pouring on the table. And then he finds out that he's the one that killed Ezekiel in the trailer in that one scene, too, as well. So that was a huge moment that we kind of got that Fight Club type thing in the end of this episode.
Yeah, it's a big reveal, and they mention it in the next episode. Samir goes, your buddy's crazy, basically, because it seems like he's talking to people that aren't there, and so it's like, Frenchie in the next episode is just kind of like, like whatever, just kind of ignores that little line and just kind of moves on. But I think that's a big reveal. They're kind of, it seems like Becca and Joe Kessler are kind of like the devil and the angel on his shoulder, or shoulders. And I'm not 100% positive that is something relating to the thing that's squirming around inside of him, that I think is there because of the compound V. We know that people take compound V as adults, and it often tends to have like a negative effect on them, like Huey's father. He kind of like lost his sanity there and didn't really know what was going on. It seems like that could be a thing with Butcher, but then at the same time, I'm not sure if that's like the thing that's squirming around inside of him. That's like, basically pretending to be people to try and control him or make him do something. So
Venom like S power.
yeah. And we know that thing killed Ezekiel, which later on in episode 7, we'll get to it, but Butcher makes a remark like, whatever that is, like, come back out of me, like, do what you did to Ezekiel, like, so it's like he's aware something's going on. It's just, I'm curious to see if they wait until season 5 to really explore that more, or if we're going to get, that thing coming out in the finale, and then they'll be like, oh, like, this is what happened to Ezekiel kind of type of thing. So interested to see that on the screen.
So the one last thing too is that from episode 6, before we go to episode 7, is that Kimiko is trying to visit Frenchie. He doesn't want any visitors. You know, he's there in his guilt, and she's like, "I've nowhere else to go." And I love the relationship, but at times I feel bad for her, you know, and so forth. And that's kind of how we, you know, we kind of end things there with the episode. We have something here from the chat. RMC says both his hallucinations are almost like his conscious talking to him, both good and bad. And then he says, "That's how I kind of take it." Yeah, so you and Alex are on the same page, and I agree there as well. So walking into episode 7, the Insider, they get Butcher out. They basically want, they get Frenchie out. They basically want Frenchie to help Samir with the virus because Samir doesn't think he can do it with the tools they have, but Frenchie's that resourceful one who can do it anytime, anywhere. You know, going back to the season finale last season, the gas to knock out Soldier Boy, he improvised in that lab too as well in Vought Tower with some of the tools there. So that's interesting. And then you have the whole thing with MM, who's given basically control of the boys back to Butcher. MM's concerned about his family. He's considering leaving. He's separating his wife and daughter off to Belize, I believe it was. And A-Train basically gets him to stay. And so they find out from, I think, was it the tapes? No, it was following Sage. They find out that she's talking with a shapeshifter. And that shapeshifter is going to be the one who is going to, they're going to use to assassinate Singer, the president? So.
Yep, because Singer and Newman, I guess, are like president and vice president elect at this point, so they haven't really assumed the office just yet, but they are, it's going to be one of those things like, assuming that this is going to be like in November, then, through December, and then January, they will take office and everything. So we even see in this episode, Newman's like packing up her belongings in her home to move, and Secret Service is there and everything. And, Newman basically like apologizes to Huey about his dad and all that kind of stuff. We see Newman basically like kind of have almost like a threatening kind of conversation with Huey, just kind of mentioning like that she thinks he's threatening her, and he's like, we've got all this info on you, we'll release it if we have to, kind of type of thing. So it seems like, everybody's kind of going into their own directions. This all happens after they chase down that shapeshifter, which they don't realize. I love that line where Butcher is like, oh, great, a shapeshifter, because it's like suddenly he's like, all right, great, we don't know who this person is. And it's kind of cool, right? Because like it seems like they may, very similar to kind of how the Skrulls were in the MCU, it almost feels like not only can they like touch you and like replicate you, but they might also like know your memories and stuff too, so I know like they did that, and so I don't want to say that that's 100%, but going towards the end of the episode, it seems like that is playing out to maybe something that's going to lead pretty big into the finale. But the shapeshifter thing and that whole scene, Huey just gets cut, and he supposedly goes to the emergency room to get stitches, and he goes to see Newman instead. So that's pretty interesting. And, also in this episode, we find out he never threw out Starlight's costume. And and it seems like maybe in his mind, he thought that like he would keep it because maybe she would want to wear it again one day. And I like what RMC is saying here about the way they shed the old skin. It reminds me in Supernatural, there's a episode with a shapeshifter that takes Dean's appearance and like kills people, which is Jensen Ackles. And they basically leave like an old nasty skin laying on the floor whenever they take somebody else's like form. So they like leave like what I'll call like the husk of themselves behind of the person they were impersonating before. So it's kind of similar, but they just like straight up rip it off like of them, it's very disgusting. So
it's almost like Viper in the Wolverine, or no, what's the movie with the Wolverine movie when he goes to Japan? Is it called The Wolverine?
Yes, I think it is. Yep.
In that movie, it kind of like her when she's like shedding her skin off to do it, but but in this one, it's a grosser way. And then Matt Parker's with us today as well. Thanks, Matt, for pointing that out. Yeah, we're definitely in Christmas time. they had that musical going with Ryan.
Mhm.
And we're gonna see some things with that. They brought the puppets back. The puppets that we saw on Gen V with Sam, they're back. Thanks, RMC. So yes, that's Viper. And then Matt also goes, wasn't there a shapeshifter in X Files back in the day who shed their skin? I believe so. That sounds familiar. I used to watch X Men
Yeah.
or X Files all the time. So yes.
Mhm.
But yeah, we're also in Christmas time. We got puppets back. They're trying to film that. Um, but it's interesting too because Newman didn't. Back to the whole Newman Huey visit. Newman didn't know about the prisons, and so
Mhm.
I wonder if that's going to change any of her thoughts on going forward and how things proceed. It was kind of a weird conversation, and episode 8, the season finale, can probably go a number of ways with who's who, especially when it comes back to the. I'm gonna skip to the end of the episode real quick.
Mhm.
So my man Huey again in this episode, he thinks it's Annie slash Starlight being intimate with him in his old costume, but we come to find out it's the shapeshifter. And
Mhm.
back to Alex's comics, about her touching, and we see that she touches Annie in the bar. Annie gets gas. Annie's changing her room, and we find out that she has access to the safe or with the hard drive and the laptop of Huey's, where he has all the information, not only on Newman but also the bug from the last episode when they all were talking in that room. My
Mhm.
question is though is that we have not seen the shapeshifter interact with anybody else, not Newman, not any of the 7 besides Sage. We see Sage with the shapeshifter beginning of the episode, and we see the shapeshifter then with Huey. Does this seem like it's part of Sage still doing her plan, and possibly Sage going to use that data to turn the tides on Homelander and the rest of them? I don't know if
Mhm.
Newman, unless we find out next episode that Newman got a call, or Newman called Sage or called somebody and deployed the shapeshifter to do that. But at this point, it seems like Sage is running something, behind the scenes here with this.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I watched this episode. You know that scene where Homelander's got the bug on the table, right? And he like presses it and destroys it. I think they look back, like they pan the camera back to that bug later on, and it like clears what's behind the bug, and it's like where he destroyed that on the table and like cracked the glass. There's like a picture of Homelander underneath. So I feel like that's some sort of like foreshadowing that they're basically going to. This is like kind of something that's going to hurt him almost in a way. Because I feel like Sister Sage, although she had a plan, I don't think she's 100% Team Homelander, to be
I think she's
honest.
Team Sage.
Yeah, exactly. So I think
Yeah,
she's got her own agenda. I just think that she was using Homelander to kind of continue what she wanted.
a means to an
Um,
end.
yeah, exactly. Like he's kind of like a tool for her. So I don't imagine that she is gonna. If you're that smart, you're not gonna be somebody that just falls in line, right? Like that's just not gonna happen. So I think ultimately for her, kind of moving forward, I feel like she's not gonna go away. And we see at the end of this episode, he thinks that Sister Sage kind of failed him. Homelander does, and he basically tells her to leave and
Yep,
then tells
fires
her
her.
that but strangely, instead of killing her like he does everybody else, he tells her like she's lucky that he's letting her live and to go back to Detroit, and he doesn't want anything to do with her anymore basically. And I think that's also partly because like he knows like he's the strongest suit basically as the world sees him now in that universe. She's kind of like the smartest, so it's kind of like you wouldn't want to remove her completely because he
Yeah,
might want to refer to her at some point or go back to her or something, so
it's almost
he's like
like
letting her
possibly
live.
a mutual respect type of thing in a way.
Yeah, and I think it's like one of those things where it's like, well, your plan did sort of work, but she reveals in that moment that she had like something happening there where she knew that A-Train was the leak, and they killed that, what was his name, Coleman dude.
Yeah, Cameron Coleman.
And like it's kind of like whatever, but like at the same time it's like she was like, this was kind of part of the plan too. And Homelander doesn't like that because he wasn't informed about
Yep,
that. And that
he doesn't
just
like being
kind
in
of
the
like,
dark. Yep.
yeah, it just kind of proves that Homelander is kind of not as in control as much as he prior thought, because that's what this is all about for Homelander, is like he's like the strongest being, but he doesn't have control over the people.
Yep.
And that's ultimately what he was looking for with Sister Sage. So to ultimately find out that she had some sort of different plan she didn't inform him of, or maybe he wasn't like privy to what that plan was originally completely. I think that's where I think you're exactly right. I think she's Team Sister Sage, and there is something that she's working towards. And I think her being fired is actually part of her plan.
Yep.
So, you know, yeah.
Yeah, because you see here from RMC, he says she's too smart not to be running her own game. Matt says, with the number of soups turning against Homelander, it feels like they might be laying the groundwork for a Civil War, a little face-off in season 5, which that makes sense too as well. That's a great point there, Matt. RMC again says he definitely doesn't like you when other people see that he doesn't know everything and isn't in full control. Also, too, you see here with this is that you see the relationship between Firecracker and Homelander building, right? So, you know, when she first came into the Seven, she's like, I'll do anything. I forgot to mention this at the last episode. At the end of episode 6, we find out that she's taking drugs to lactate to basically be in Homelander's favor, because we know from season 1 and 2 how Homelander likes certain things with breastfeeding. And we see her breastfeeding Homelander at the end of the season when she sprays the milk in his face, and it's his reaction. My wife was cracking up laughing about that. But then we kind of see them at the beginning of this episode where he kind of enlists Firecracker to help with interrogating Webweaver, and that's when you mentioned before if they killed Webweaver, and it seems like them two. And back to Sage, he's like, you killed Webweaver? Why? You know, this and that. And he's like, you're going to the worst person that you can to kind of help you through this right now, Homelander and Firecracker.
Homelander's reaction to Firecracker when she showed him that reminded me, and this is so terrible, but it reminded me in Always Sunny where Dennis is like, why, Noreen, you've enhanced yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know, like I laughed so hard about that because like that's just how I saw it. But yeah, you know, it was kind of one of those things where Firecracker, I think in that moment, thought that she was doing the right thing when she brings Homelander to Webweaver. And Webweaver's already, like, pretty badly hurt and pretty torn up. And, you know, Sage, I think, even makes the remark, like, well, he's a drug addict. Like, drug addicts will say anything just to get them back to their next fix. And that's what he was doing, was, you know, he was basically just doing whatever. So I think for her at that point, I think, you know, you have Firecracker that saw Homelander just rip him in half, right? And yeah, I think that Firecracker is kind of maybe a little bit scared of what's going on at this point, because I don't think she's seen that side of Homelander where he just gets mad and rips somebody physically in half, you know. But even he is frustrated with her and is like, you know, get out of my sight, basically. And
at the end, it's just him. At the end,
yeah, so I think this is kind of like, you know, Homelander is kind of like, I've got no allies around me anymore, right? Like, and his thing with Sister Sage was he's surrounded by yes men. I mean, everybody just says yes and will do whatever because they're afraid of Homelander, and she wasn't. So I think that's also why he like let her live and go on. But yeah, I mean, like the Deep, you know, the new Black Noir. A-Train, I mean, A-Train just kind of does his own thing. I don't really think, you know, Homelander, I think he's afraid of Homelander, but I don't really think that he's like, you know, like the others are, you know, the Deep has that one scene where he's like, I'll kill anybody for you, Homelander. I'll do anything for you, you know, like, because he's so terrified of Homelander. So, yeah, and I don't know if you want to go ahead and get into it, but the fight scene where they fight in the building against the Deep and the Black Noir, go ahead.
One more second before I get there. And we had this comment from RMC about he loves that mother's milk, referring to Homelander. But yeah, let's get into... Actually, before we get into that, one more thing, too, I forgot to mention from last episode. The conversation between Homelander and Newman about Stan Egger being basically out and free right now, basically on the lam. That was interesting interaction, too, as well. And I don't know if that's going to play a role this season in the finale, or... we'll see something from Stan Egger next season as well. And I think he might have something cooking up also. And I'll leave that to there so we can talk about the whole Black Noir and the Deep piece. But real quick, one more comment from RMC. Been doing a rewatch, just finishing up season 1. It's cool to go revisit. Noticing things I didn't before. Thoroughly enjoying the original Noir. Yeah, the original Noir was crazy. and you find out kind of why he is the way he is last season with the whole Soldier Boy thing, because he was there with Soldier Boy, and that's why Homelander killed the original Noir, because he didn't tell him that he knew that Soldier Boy was his father. But let's talk about the whole fight now.
I love that scene where like the Deep and Black Noir show up, and they're basically like, you know, sent by Homelander to kill the boys, because Homelander's like, I'm so tired of them, like we're just gonna remove them from play. You know, I think it's a couple seasons ago, Homelander and Butcher actually had like a sit down at one point, and basically they said to each other that they knew it was going to end with them basically trying to kill each other, and that was going to be how they would like let that play out. But you know, obviously we've had Homelander encounter Butcher before, and he used his X-ray vision to look and see the spot on his brain, and he was like, oh wow, looks like you won't be living up to what we said before. So I think he's just kind of like, you know, we'll just go ahead and get rid of them. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of them causing problems. And I love that line from A-Train where he tells the Deep, I've always hated you. Because, like, that's, I mean, I don't think watching the show, you really, like, I think that dude Chase Crawford is a great actor for the Deep, and he does a good job. But, yeah, I hate the Deep myself. Like, you know, like, he's just a terrible person and a crappy like character in the show, not like as in he's badly written, but he's just a terrible character, you know.
From day one in the show, he's been a bad person. So
exactly. So, you know, kind of seeing that, like, I loved it when A-Train kind of intervened there, because it kind of turns the tide of that fight a little bit. And then Black Noir, the replacement Black Noir, passes out mid-fight and then wakes back up. And I love it when he flies and he lifts up off the ground, and like Butcher is like, oh, you know, great, you can fly too now. Like, you know, like that's what this Black Noir can do. So it's like utter chaos again. And yeah, I mean, A-Train was definitely the difference maker there in that fight. Had he would have not intervened, that would not have gone their way, in my opinion, you know. So yeah, it was just crazy, and they absolutely destroy that entire room and everything, you know, just trying to get out of there. And the Deep, Starlight, she puts it on the Deep, like knocked him out with like a plate or something like that from like a workout bench or something like that.
Like one of those 45-pound plates from a free weights.
Yeah, just like beating him over the head with it. So yeah, that fight was crazy. What were your thoughts on it? I mean,
I thought the funniest part was when A-Train shows up and the Deep's like, you're the Leak, and then Noir's like, bro, you're the Leak, and then Annie's like, she talks.
Yeah.
So that was funny because no one else knew that he could talk and that he could fly, and no one really knows besides the Seven and Internal Levant that that's not the same Black Noir. That's basically the same. It's the same actor who played Noir the whole time. It's just that in the series he's a different Black Noir. And it seems like he has the same powers as Noir, except he can fly, and he can talk. So I thought it was funny. I love that scene too, especially when Mother's Milk MM comes in, because they show that mutual respect again between him and A-Train, and you see the whole thing. And I agree, because if A-Train didn't show up and then Mother's Milk didn't show up, they would have definitely wiped the floor with Annie and with the Butcher. And going to the chat here, Matt says we've seen a shift in A-Train now. With that being with what he said about the little kid watching him at the hospital, he wants to be a proper hero now. I completely agree. He wants to amend that relationship with his brother. He wants to be on the right side of history, not the wrong side of history. RMC says I'm liking that with A-Train, like redemption of sorts for him. And then RMC does not like the new Black Noir. He says the new Black Noir sucks. I like him, you know, because pretty much other than the talking and him trying to figure out what he needs to do, because we saw the bro last episode between those two, is that, you know, he's trying to figure out what they want him to do in this role. And he actually didn't want to do it. And then he saw the paycheck and he's like, I'm in, you know, because they kind of had that flashback when he first like came into like interview or audition for the role.
That's what cracks me up about him. Like, you know, we really don't know who's really underneath the mask in the show. We don't know, like, if he was another suit that they just said, hey, put this costume on and be the new Black Noir or what. He's just kind of like, you know, what's my motivation for this role, you know? And it's kind of like you stand there and don't talk and you seem menacing. That's your motivation. And it's like he starts to talk and it's like, okay, that's your first problem. You're talking. Black Noir doesn't talk, you know? So I think kind of going forward, it'll be interesting if they do kind of expose a little bit more about maybe what soup that was, who he is. Obviously, I think it's the same actor that played Black
Yeah.
Noir
Yep.
in the previous ones. So nothing surprising, I think, to me about that. Because they never really showed his face, right? Like, I think they showed like him pulling
Part
his
of it.
mask up,
Yeah.
and you could see like right here.
Well,
But
they showed his face with the flashbacks to the Soldier Boy beginning when they were in there, and his face got blown up, and that's why he wears the mask.
So Black Noir was terrifying originally. Like that they had that one season where he basically fights that one soup who like is like a pyrokinetic or whatever, and he basically like fights Black Noir, and then he like cuts off his head and then takes it back or whatever, and like it's like a terrorist, and you see him standing in there with the little like plush animal. Like, say that scene was so creepy. So he's terrifying. But yeah, this one is definitely not as terrifying. But I'm just curious to know, like, what going forward if that guy ends up being kind of somebody else that flips. Because we also find out at the end of this episode that the Deep he had a relationship with Sister Sage, and then apparently so did the new Black Noir. And like, it's like, she's like leaving and she's like, I'm fired, and like the Deep's like, what? Like, what does this mean for us? And that's basically what the other Black Noir, is basically like, what does this mean for us? And it's
He's
like,
I love you.
yeah. And it's like, what? Like, and so like, it's really interesting. I think it's just, this show is ultimate chaos, and it just keeps on getting worse and worse and worse with each episode. So, I mean, I thought that was a really interesting kind of ending for those. And it kind of shows that like the Deep and Black Noir, they got their butts handed to them basically because A-Train intervened, and they got incredibly lucky. And Starlight, of course, was a difference maker there, but they had some great shots in that scene. One of them was when they tried to, I think Butcher ran over to get that big mini gun out, and he was trying to get it open, and he just gets like picked up by Black Noir, I think it was, and launched, like, so crazy kind of ending there. And that scene with the Deep and Black Noir was just so hilarious to me. So
especially that line when the Deep's like, so you're lobotomizing yourself for him too as well, and he looks at Deep and he goes, what do you mean lobotomizing herself? It's like she had to dumb herself down for the Deep, but her and the new Black Noir were on the same level, which is funny. Going back over here to RMC about the new Black Noir, I liked him better as a mute. There was a real mystery with him, like a ninja, but way stronger and more deadly. I don't mind that he can fly now. And then he made the comment about the whole Sage didn't want the lobotomy with Nora, did she? LOL. Yeah, so that was a really revealing scene there. And I'm interested to see what happens now that Sage is leaving, and with Black Noir basically saying, or the new Black Noir saying that he's in love with her. Where does that go between those two and so forth? One thing about that fight, it still seems like Annie's having an issue with her powers, because we've seen her strength and her fighting these last 2 episodes, but since the farm, where she could barely use her light powers, where we saw before in the seasoning, she was just learning how to fly with her powers. Now it seems like her powers aren't working at all as far as the light-based powers that she has.
I feel like that's going to be like something like, I'm trying to think which Spider-Man movie it was. It was either the second or the third one where Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man like loses his powers, like they're on the fritz, because like he's dealing with like emotional kind of stuff.
Like in
I feel like
Crisis.
that's kind of what's going. Yeah, exactly. I feel like that's kind of what's going on with her. I can't really like figure it out, because it seems like, obviously it seems like she's still got super strength and stuff like that, but even Newman kind of pointed it out, like, oh, we having some internal struggles in the episode where they go to Edgar's like property and all that kind of stuff. So I think kind of like moving forward, I hope that she'll figure out whatever it is that's bothering her by the end of the episode 8 and be able to kind of fix that. But it just seems like her actual like energy projection is what's on the fritz, and maybe not her super strength and all that kind of stuff. But I don't really think that she's like entirely like as strongly and vulnerable as some other soups, So like the Deep, he took a beating, but like, they just literally like got up and they walked back him and Noir back to Vought and just kind of hobbled in. And, I think the Deep's like doing like this, like his shoulder is messed up or something. But, it's like, for some reason, like everybody who becomes a Soup almost in this universe has some degree of invulnerability. I feel
healing
like.
or something.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's got me wondering two things. Like, number one, with the Soup virus, we have seen that, Samir asked, are you going to use it against Newman? Because he loves her. He doesn't want them to do that. But my ultimate question is, they threw acid on her and it wouldn't even pierce her skin. So what are you going to do? You going to stab her with a needle and that's going to go in? Like, it's got to be something like really good, or are you going to like spray it on her or something,
Well, we saw them go for the head though. And maybe because her powers, her head is invincible. We didn't see them go anywhere else because the acid went to her face, the gunshot to the head. They didn't try anywhere else on her body. So I wonder if she has some kind of soft spot.
Her jacket got the acid on it and it just ate right through and stuff like that. So I think she's pretty invulnerable. And then the question ultimately leads me to question about Homelander is, what are you going to do? Like, like they're talking about like, do you think you're going to inject Homelander with this virus? Because like he's also invulnerable and arguably the strongest.
We did see Maeve stab him in the ear and he was bleeding from the ear.
Well, yes, but I mean, like, that's true, I suppose. But, like they talk about this virus isn't strong enough to really like hurt him unless it becomes like an airborne virus.
Or they put it in the milk. Maybe they get Firecracker unknowingly and then, I don't know, or they get into his supply because A-Train knows about his supply in his room. They could put it in there. He could ingest it. So there's other ways they could possibly get Homelander.
And you see Starlight, she's concerned that they're going to commit genocide if this virus gets out, basically. But, the thing that bothers me the most is like all these Soups in this universe that have powers and stuff are like, they're like reprobates, right? Like they're like, these people they are just nasty people, they've all got their weird quirks and things like, so it's like, I get it. But at the same time, it's like, even in the animated show Diabolical, there were characters that we saw that were like the Great Wide Wonder that was like, shooting up drugs before he went and made his public event and stuff like that. So, I get it. But at the same time, it's like, I'm really curious where they go forward with that, because now it seems like at the end of this episode, we see Kimiko lose her leg.
Well, go ahead. I was going to get the chat real quick.
Okay. I was just gonna say we see Kimiko lose her legs, so we know the virus works.
Yep.
Right. So, but go ahead. My bad.
No, fine. We'll do that piece real quick, and I'll get to the chat. But yeah, we see the kind of Deadpool moment with Kimiko, with Frenchie chopping off her leg because Samir thinks they're gonna kill him or double cross him, so he injects Kimiko with the virus. Frenchie saws her leg off. At the end of the episode, we see her with the little baby Deadpool leg, like we see with Deadpool in the movies.
So hard, and that was so funny too. And like in that Deadpool movie where he stands up to shake Cable's hand, and he's like 3 feet tall, and like I think that one guy's like, oh, look at him go. But yeah, it felt very similar to that. You just see like her little leg like sitting there, and it's like that big basically, and yeah, it's very funny. So
back to the chat here. RMC says, I love her powers, scanners, LOL. I think this is in regards to Newman, maybe. With that one, Matt says, I'm thinking with Newman that she might actually get to be president, but then she's going to go back on her deal and follow her own agenda, which I agree there. I think there's going to be another cross here. RMC agrees with Matt. I think so too. She'll become president. Yeah, so interesting things here going on here, different dynamics, all kinds of threads that are going to probably be pulled and come to a head in this next episode. I do kind of, back to the Deep real quick. I do kind of feel bad for him because we see the Deep. Basically, he thinks with Homelander manipulating him or his fear of Homelander, he kills his octopus lover. Basically, yeah, that was terrible. Thinks that's, that Sage is there. And then he finds out that Sage has been using him and dumbing herself down, but Black Noir has kind of been the more intellectual level one. So, but the Deep kind of got himself in the own situation. He could have left any time, gone back to the ocean. So
him killing the octopus though confused me, because like earlier on in the episode, he's literally like telling her, "Oh, you've been out of your aquarium for too long. Like we got to put you back in soon because like it's life threatening for you to be out for too long." And then he literally like breaks the aquarium, and then she dies like 30 seconds later, and
Yeah, that
she's
makes
like,
sense.
"Oh, I can't breathe. Oh, I can't breathe." And then like he's like upset, and then all of a sudden like another 30 seconds later, she's like, "Oh, help me," like she's still there. So I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like earlier on in the episode, she was out for like minutes at a time, and it seemed like they were like watching TV or just hanging out like with her like on the couch or something.
I don't know if there was water
So,
on because there was plastic down, so I don't know if you had water there too, or like a little layer of water because there was plastic there where she was laying on.
I don't know. It was just very weird to me how they kind of did that. And yeah, I mean, obviously we've seen him lose it over sea animals dying. Like
Yep.
the scene with the whale, I think in season 2 or 3, where Butcher puts a boat inside of a whale, basically like that kind of really shook the deep. So it seems like the deep's kind of lost his way quite a bit more. Yep. He was already kind of a character that was lost in my opinion, but yeah, I mean, and that obviously is of fear of he doesn't want to be exposed, right, for the things that he's done. So it seems like everybody in this universe has got some sort of blackmail on them, right? And everybody's using it against everybody. Yep. So
RMC clarifies, I messed up on that comment, like the movie Scanners with Newman's powers. Matt's got a good one here. He says there's a metaphorical element to Frenchie sawing the leg off. Him sewing the leg off is Frenchie both removing a corrupted part of Kimiko, and by doing so, she's healing someone instead of killing them. It's a redemption scene for both of them. Yes, I agree because they had that whole conversation about in the flashbacks and why doesn't Kimiko talk or continue to talk, and the things they've done. And that's a great comment there. That whole healing thing between, well, just before you saw her leg off, the whole healing moment between those two and trying to get things back on track with those two.
Metaphorically, it's like him starting off on a new leg, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like and her too. Like, it's kind of like they've not only started this whole thing where they've got a virus now that works, but also their relationship, Frenchie and Kimiko, is starting off on a new leg. They're honest with each other. They know like why they both did it. He explains why he wouldn't see her, and she explains what happened to her and why she doesn't talk and stuff. So, I mean, there's definitely a new level of openness there between those two characters. And I know a lot of people are like, rooting for those two to end up together and everything like that. And they've already said in the show that they like love one another, but they don't really want to be together kind of type of thing. And, I don't know if that'll ever change, but yeah, I mean, like, I think that those two definitely are extremely close, probably like out of the boys. Like Frenchie seems incredibly close, and he was not happy that Mallory pulled the strings to get him out of jail to help Butcher and everything. And he was kind of there against his wishes, but he kind of, I guess, sees some sort of similarity in his story to Kimiko's as well. And, he's kind of forced to be there and everything like that. And yeah, I think kind of going forward, it'll be really interesting to see what they do with her, because we saw Kessler like mention that if this virus moved forward, that it would potentially hurt Starlight and Kimiko. And Butcher's kind of like, well, one of those is like extremely strong, like talking about Kimiko. So it's one of those things where for him, I think it's like incredibly crucial. Like she's a great weapon for the boys, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so they don't want anything to happen to her. So.
And then getting back to the whole thing with Ryan, the one with the Butcher and the whole virus thing too, we see Ryan at the Christmas special. He's like, stop, not going along with it. It almost seems like he's going to spill the beans or share something that to the world that they don't know. Ashley wanted to cut the feed. He's like, don't you dare cut that feed. And then he kind of stopped and ran off. And that's where we see Butcher talking to Kessler again, saying, you see, there's still hope for him, or some kind of line where that Butcher thinks that with Ryan, because he sent Ryan the picture of them as a Christmas present of him and his mom, the three of them together and all that kind of stuff. So it almost seems like Ryan's going to be part of this too as well. So we have a lot of dynamics going into episode 8 Assassination Run. So, with kind of closing out the talk of the boys before we get to the news, what do you think we're going to see in the finale of season 4?
Oh, man. So I think we're going to see... So ultimately, I think overall where I think season 5 is heading is obviously Singer will be out of the way. I don't know if it'll happen in the finale, But I think Newman will eventually, like, as soon as that happens, Newman will take over as president. Now, I think that's going to put her in a position where she's either going to have to stand firm against Homelander or she's going to have to do his bidding. And I don't imagine that she's going to do Homelander's bidding. So it's going to be like the immovable object versus the unstoppable force kind of like argument, like which one wins kind of type of deal. Because I think she's afraid to test if she can kill Homelander. And, you know, she's invincible, it appears. But, you know, I don't know if Homelander can kill her. I would imagine he probably could. He probably has a higher chance of being able to do that. But I think with that laptop that we saw that was taken, it seems like that had information. At first, I was like, oh, you know, they're trying to frame this as a Starlighters thing to kind of frame the Starlighters to be bad. Maybe there's information on there that they want to expose about Starlight as well. And in addition
what else
to
can
the,
they expose though about her?
Yeah.
She's already seen unfavorably already, and people have already distanced themselves from her. So what
But
else
I mean,
can there
like,
be?
it
Or do
could
you
be
think
one
the
of those
shapeshifter might do something to even further
Well,
that?
Well, that's where I think like the shapeshifter might be like, okay, like I'm Starlight, I'm appearing as her. I'm gonna go ahead and release all this information about myself to tell you, like, so she'll appear as Starlight and go out there and do bad things and make Starlight look bad because she's pretending to be Starlight. And I think that'll happen in the next episode. And it'll be one of those things where it'll be like, yeah, you know, like she'll be very antagonistic. She'll be like, that's why Starlight is like locked up in a room in a chain that she can't seem to break for some reason. And I think that'll be one of those things where they're going to try and keep her there while they try and destroy her and ruin her publicly. And I think that's ultimately going to be one of those things like, oh, and of course it couldn't come at a better time because her powers are on the fritz, right?
See,
like,
that's
go
where I
ahead.
think she's gonna figure out her powers next episode, and that's
Mhm,
what's gonna break her free, and she's gonna help out in some way. I
mhm,
still think Sage is behind her being kidnapped and getting the laptop. I think Sage is going to use that data for her benefit, not for Homelander's
mhm,
or anything else, or against Starlight. I think it's more of the Newman stuff and the audio from that meeting at Tech Knight's mansion. I think that's where it's going.
mhm.
I also think too that we possibly could see a character from the past. I would love to see Soldier Boy
Yeah.
show up in this episode. I would love to see Maeve or Maeve show up in this episode because she's still out there.
Mhm,
And she could have by now because she took the blast from Soldier Boy and lost her powers. But we know with Kimiko that those powers can come back over time. Or did they
mhm.
re-inject her? I can't. No, her powers came back, didn't they?
I'm not sure if they did re-inject her. I thought they did, but I could be wrong on that. But
I'll have to go back then.
I mean, they could easily just do something like that with Maeve, where like her powers slowly come back over time,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know, I know Maeve was basically like Wonder Woman for them, you
Yep.
know. So Wonder Woman's a pretty strong character, and you know, she wasn't entirely invincible. There was a line in one of the episodes where they talked about how she broke her arm. Like I
Well,
think her
her
and
eye
Homelander.
too.
Yeah, like her and Homelander were talking about how something happened and she broke her arm in a fight or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, like I think kind of going forward, they should definitely bring her back, but I don't know if they will. It seems like they kind of gave her like a little bit of an exit from the show. So it's open if they want to. And what, we're only going to get season 5 in the future,
And
and
that's
then
the
they'll
last
probably
season.
stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of careening towards like utter chaos between Homelander, Newman, Butcher. And we're going to end up with one of those scenes like in the comics where, you know, Homelander's flying over the White House and Butcher's approaching the White House with the boys. And maybe Homelander kills Newman and tries to seize power for himself. And then, you know, all the soups are there. And it's one of those things like, you either fall in line or I'm Homelander and I rip you in half, basically, you know, like
Yeah.
I did to Web Weaver. And yeah, like, and I think Ryan is being set up right now where in that previous episode, it seems like he's going to go into the finale where I think he's going to kind of start to really reject Homelander. And it's because like Butcher's going to play that like your mother would never want you to do this, like you need to be a good person, your mother would want you to be a good person, she wouldn't want you to lie and do this, that, and the other. So that's where I think we're going. And of course, I think Ryan will be a huge weapon in ultimately defeating Homelander.
Yep. He
You
is the
know?
weapon.
Yeah, exactly. And like Joe Kessler said to Butcher at one point, we either learn how to make him an asset or we learn how to kill him.
Yep.
And I think that's kind of where the boys and, you know, Mallory would ultimately be with Ryan. And I think that's why Ryan, like, originally Mallory wanted to take him and keep him somewhere and learn to train him and stuff to make him an asset. But you know, I think Butcher is kind of finding his own way of how to do that, because he's not going to try and force him, because when you try and force somebody to do something, naturally they want to go the opposite way. So he's trying to appeal to he's trying to appeal to Ryan's humanity ultimately, and that's what kind of appears to have happened. And that scene where they're talking about you need to report your neighbors and your friends and your family members and stuff, and Ryan stands up and he's like, I don't believe in this. My mom would want this. You know, I think that's where we're going. And you see Homelander, he looks angry at the end of that. So I think he might get a little bit mad at Ryan, and that might also push Ryan away. I'm not sure if he'll run away in the finale and go to Butcher. I could kind of see that happening. But I have a feeling that this is going to be one of those things where the finale ends and Homelander's alone. Like, nobody's around him. He's pushed everybody away, including his son, kind of type of deal.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see some deaths too, possibly Firecracker. I still wonder what Sage's plan is going to be going forward. Stan Edgar's still out there. I don't know if we'll see him again this season or next season. I almost feel like this season's going to end on a cliffhanger. The only thing I can probably say is that we'll probably see Newman in power, or at least getting to that point. Maybe they're going to thwart the assassination. Who knows? But I could see the season ending in a cliffhanger. Go ahead.
I think Newman, I was just going to say, I think Newman may have saved Stan Edgar in that one episode where they went to his farm and everything, for the sole purpose of, he's like a father to her, but also for the sole purpose of, he's one of the only people that stood up to Homelander, and he also would know of probably any vault plans to take him down. So, like, I'm sure they had a plan A, plan B, a plan C, a plan D, you know, like a few different things. So, you know, maybe that's why she's got him stored somewhere. Like, you know, she's got Edgar off the grid in a place where she can kind of reach out to him and be like, what do I do now? Kind of type of deal. But yeah, it'll be really interesting. I feel like this can't be the last that we've seen of Giancarlo Esposito in this show. So
I'm not sure if we'll see A-Train or not. I know that A-Train's kind of went off the grid with his family and actually telling him to take out his tracker. I would not be surprised if we don't see A-Train again until next season, though. So
I agree with that.
Getting to the chat here, Matt says the shot of Kessler smiling when Butcher hit the floor suggests Kessler might be the dominant personality when Butcher's body recovers. That's a great point right there. He also says, I think Newman being sworn in will be the final scene of the series. If Newman is president and also has control of the virus, she can hold Homelander to ransom and call the shot. That's a great point, too. RMC says, to follow up on that, she'll outsmart him for sure in regards to Newman outsmarting Homelander. And he also said about my comment about Soldier Boy, he says, I heard he's going to appear. RMC also says, Maeve and Kamiko are my favorites. Nor used to be there. So, yeah, I think Kamiko has become my favorite over time in the series. I don't know. Something with Starlight doesn't rub me the right way. I don't know, but we'll see.
I like Starlight, like, in the beginning, but, like, now, like, you know, I think she was kind of originally framed kind of in a similar light to how they kind of, like, framed Firecracker when they brought her onto the Seven, as, like, she was this, like, small town kind of, like, little voice hero kind of type of deal that's now made it to the Seven, and then all of that. And I think, you know, we found out that Firecracker and Starlight had similar history. They went through that pageant strip and everything like that. Firecracker's got it out for Starlight. So, you know, it seems like in this world, everybody's got vendettas against everybody kind of, you know, for different things. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Starlight. I will say, I know a lot of people were like questioning about Mother's Milk and everything like that. And, you know, kind of, I've seen that actor talk about after season 5, they should do a movie
Yep.
and kind of like move forward and do like a season 5, leave it on a cliffhanger and move towards a movie. And I think Anthony Starr, the guy who plays Homelander, is like, let's do it kind of type of thing. I'm not exactly sure if they'll ever do that. I don't think Kripke probably will. I imagine he'll probably want to end this with season 5. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I feel like there's going to be a little bit of a cliffhanger at the end of this, and I think Matt's right. Like, I imagine like we might end up with Singer mysteriously dying or something, and then we'll end up with Newman like accepting, that and being president, and we'll just have to see where it goes forward from that.
Like Singer not even being killed by them, but something else happens to him, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the finale on Thursday, episode 8, Assassination Run. We should be back on the 21st next Sunday to talk about that. Next Sunday could possibly be a double-header episode because talking with Mr. Steed, Andy, our third person that usually on here with us, he should be back for the Deadpool preview episode, which we're doing next week, and then doing the Deadpool review episode, not the following Sunday, but the 4th of August to do the Deadpool review. So Andy will be back as far as we're planning for now for next Sunday, and we should be the 3 of us again going forward, hopefully. So looking forward to that, to both the preview and the review of Deadpool and Wolverine next week, and then the 4th.
And pretty exciting, Deadpool and Wolverine comes out in 11 or 12 days? Is that correct?
Yep. It comes out on the 26th.
Yeah, so that's exciting. So we're just right around the corner. It'll be here before we know it. So
moving on. Oh, one more comment here from RMC before we get on to the news. RMC says that would be awesome though. Movie would do well, no question. Yeah, and they could probably do a lot. Amazon. They could do a direct to Amazon movie, or they could put it in the theaters and then stream to Amazon later. So, and then Matt says less than 2 weeks to Deadpool and Wolverine. Yep. So the news here, starting off today with the DC news. Superman. Millie Alcock is rumored to be currently in Cleveland for Superman. She was cast as Kara Zor-El for Superman Woman of Tomorrow. So it sounds like we're going to get a Supergirl appearance in Superman. Oh, RMC also says in the chat, just scored my tickets today. So he got his tickets there for Deadpool and Wolverine. I need to get mine. I'll probably go that night or the Friday. We'll see how things work out. Matt also says San Diego Comic-Con, the same weekend the film comes out too. So we'll have all the Hall H announcements. That also, but also too, the Monday after Comic-Con is when Fantastic Four also starts filming as well. Via Variety, Will Reeve, Christopher Reeve's son, will appear in James Gunn's Superman as a TV reporter. That's pretty cool.
Which, by the way, I think his son could play Superman too, right? Like he looks very similar to Christopher Reeve, and I love Christopher Reeve. I think his appearance as Superman looks literally like Alex Ross drew him as Superman, right? So it's pretty crazy. I think he looks very similar to his father. So.
Blue Beetle news, which Alex and I were talking earlier. I actually watched Blue Beetle again this morning. I love this movie. I hope we see Xolo Mariduna back in live action and teaming up with Booster Gold, but via Lone Lobos, Xolo Mariduna says on the upcoming Blue Beetle TV show, I was like, so I think it should be this, and this, and they're like, yeah, Blue Beetle is back. I'm so excited. In the animated show, the fact that this kid likes anime and can make whatever freaking weapon he wants, so he's excited about it. And that's pretty cool. I think that does lend some stuff to the anime. I just hope, like Alex was saying earlier, that they don't put him into a corner with the anime, and don't bring him back into live action in the DCU. Because remember, Gunn came out and said, it says Blue Beetle is the first DCU character, but Superman is the first DCU film. So we'll see what happens there.
I'm just worried it's going to have a similar treatment to like Creature Commandos. Like I think Creature Commandos will play into like Rick Flag Sr. being in like the Superman movie. But I don't imagine that Creature Commandos is going to be like a heavily impactful TV show on the rest of the DC stuff that's coming out, in my opinion, other than like Rick Flag Sr. So,
Arkham Asylum series, via Variety, the Arkham Asylum TV series is not moving forward on Max. It was supposed to be an original series in Matt Reeves' Batman universe.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Interesting. That would have been really interesting. I wonder if that would have like shown a little bit more of the Joker after we
Yeah.
saw him like teased in that first Matt Reeves Batman movie. So,
The Penguin series will officially release September 19th on the Max. Booster Gold news. Via Nexus Point News, Booster Gold will be portrayed by Kumal Nagiani, better known as Kingo in Eternals. Now, some people speculate, is he done with the MCU? I don't think so. You can do both. It just figures out when the Eternals are going to show up and how in the MCU. I have some Eternal stuff too, I think, in here. Do I have a comment about that? Or if not, I'll make it now. I'm scrolling down real quick. I don't have anything Eternals in here, but there was talk about how the Eternals still want to be done. They just don't know when and where. And there was a project being talked about, but they're still up in the air with that. RMC says the Booster Gold announcement was unexpected. Yeah, I can see that.
yeah, I'm not really good.
I know nothing. Matt says I know nothing about Blue Beetle before I saw the movie, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was a fun film. Go ahead, Alex.
I was just gonna say I wasn't really excited about that rumor for that casting. I didn't really care for Kingo in the Eternals movie. I don't know why. I think it's a very kind of like a typecast based on that, right? Because like I know it sounds kind of odd, but like Booster Gold is like from the future, right? And he's like somebody that basically goes back to the past to try and be a superhero with like future tech. And he's very much like in the Eternals, it was like, hey, like I get this on film, like, what, like with me being heroic kind of type of deal, and that's kind of like how similar I guess he is to Booster Gold. So I think it's kind of like a similar thing. But yeah, I just hated that was the one thing I wasn't that crazy about in the Eternals, but I love the rest of the Eternals, of course. So I agree with RMC that I thought Pratt had that on lock. I thought that was going to be, it's a very similar role to Star-Lord. He's very goofy, very similar. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I would have liked Pratt, but I guess we'll just have to see what happens and how it moves forward. So
yeah, interesting too if they do any kind of thing with Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. If this is the casting, if Kamal and Sholo will have what kind of dynamic they'll have between each other. I think that could be a good thing. Maybe that's why they went that route versus Chris Pratt, or maybe Chris Pratt didn't want to do it, and so they went another direction. So
I could also see them just being like Chris Pratt being like, I don't want to do a very similar role to Star-Lord either. So like do something different. And that's one thing that I don't like about like all these people that play in like one character and then get typecast as a very similar character. Like, like I don't think we need all the same actors that are in Marvel movies and DC movies. I don't think we need them on both sides. Like, I'd like to see a lot of new fresh faces, but like, it seems like, I know James Gunn is in charge of DC, and I imagine tons of people like Nathan Fillion and, other people like that are going to end up being cast as other DC roles. Like, he's Guy Gardner, the Green Lantern. So I imagine that this is going to happen more. I know we talked about Mantis potentially playing the actress for that, playing a role in DC. I would love to see her as like Talia. I would love to see her as like Star Sapphire, but that one will be really interesting. That's a character that they should just cast these people as characters that can return a few times at least. Yep. and not be a one and done. And that's what I'm worried about with Guy Gardner, is he'll just be a one and done, and Nathan Fillion will end up just playing another role that's like a one and done kind of type of deal. Like he might die at the beginning of the Lantern show and his ring goes to like Jon Stewart, which I would be happy about. But like at the same time, like I feel like Nathan Fillion ends up in all these roles for James Gunn where he plays like a one and done character in movies and stuff like that in shows. So
moving on to Star Wars news. So via Deadline, Jonathan Trooper Warrior has signed on to write Sean Levy's Star Wars film. Trooper has also worked with Levy on the Adam Project. So that's for Sean Levy's Star Wars film. Avengers 5, via Nexus Point News, Avengers 5 will start filming in March, late March 2025, and continue through the end of summer 2025. Due to the film's extensive cast and scale, actors will shoot scenes in segments, often finishing within weeks and not always with the full cast present. Via Jeff Snyder, Sean Levy will reportedly not be directing Avengers 5. So they really wanted him to do that, especially after Deadpool Wolverine, but I don't know if the Star Wars film is going to be in his way or other projects he has on his plate, but he sounds like he's not going to do it.
Yeah.
Real quick, RMC says there's an animated Batman show coming out on Prime real soon, isn't there? Yeah, Batman Beyond or something like that.
No, I think it's Batman. I want to say it's like the Cape Crusader or something.
Yes,
like that.
That's it. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Hang on, I just want
All
to
right.
confirm that.
While you're looking that up, via Nexus Point News, Michael Waldron is no longer set to write Avengers 5. But despite this, he is still attached to write Avengers Secret Wars at this time. So
It is Batman the Cape Crusader, by the way. So
yeah, there you go, RMC. It's the Cape Crusader. So that's interesting. I was hoping they would keep some kind of continuity between Avengers 5 and Avengers Secret Wars, but it depends on what direction they're going, especially with the whole Kang stuff. They could be separate things, so we'll have to wait and see with that one. Venom will feature the first. Oh, I'm sorry. Via feature first, Venom: The Last Dance is expected to be the longest film in the Sony Spider-Man universe. The runtime is estimated at 2 hours and about 20 minutes, which is also the only successful non-Spider-Man film in that universe. Because yeah, what's her Madam Web didn't do well, and I don't expect much from Craven either. But hey, if they give me a proper Rhino, maybe I'll change up my thoughts on it.
My girlfriend loves Venom, and every time she always talks about Venom, I just hear that Eminem song playing in my head, and I'm just like, Venom, 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 Venom. Yeah. So.
Matt Parker's from the chat here says maybe Levy could do the X-Men movie, and that could be it too. Maybe he'll do that one. So we'll have to wait and see what he does. But I know he has a Star Wars film coming up, and I'm not sure what else he has on his plate outside of the Deadpool Wolverine film. RMC says Levy and X-Men would be sick. So there you go. Wonder Man, Demetrius Gross, or Grosset, sorry if I said that wrong, talks about Wonder Man. I think people are going to be intrigued by the dynamic between Simon Williams and Eric Williams as much as about the dynamic between Grim Reaper and Wonder Man. This series is going to be very, very different, but pleasantly so. So, RMC also says, I'm worried sick about Craven. Matt says, Sony are losing their biggest non-Peter Parker asset with the end of the Venom trilogy. I agree. Oh, actually, yes and no, because they still have Miles Morales and they still have the Spider-Verse stuff. So,
and they've got Morbius. I mean, that brought in more billions of dollars, so.
Matt goes, does he get bit by a radioactive lion? LOL.
Yeah. It seems that way based on that trailer, So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Deadpool Wolverine news. Sean via EW Entertainment Weekly. Sean reveals that there's a lot of characters who will pop up in Deadpool Wolverine, but clarifies, we didn't want any of the cameos or characters to be the story of the movie. Sean Levy also says Marvel fans will lose their minds 10 billion times while watching the film. There are certain moments in the movie that if you can't even hear the dialogue over the laughter, we failed. That's an interesting thing there. Oh yeah, Matt says he stands correct with Miles. Yep, sorry. No worries. What if news? So Brad Winderbaum was on the official Marvel podcast on the second episode and talked all the shows. Kevin Feige was on the first one. He teased What If season 3. He says, if it feels like the completion of a trilogy, it takes us to places that you never expect. It goes beyond the first 2 seasons. It's exploration of the multiverse. It pulls in characters that are very unexpected. So, X97 via Deadline, Matthew Chauncey will be the head writer for season 3. He has worked on What If and Miss Marvel. He was responsible for these episodes of What If also. Star-Lord T'Challa, Crazy Hank, Zombies, Ultron, Nova Nebula, Celestial Peter, Happy, Hela, and Strange Supreme. The third season is currently in development. Bo DeMaio's work has been revised and completed for season 2.
Okay.
So, Daredevil, also from the Marvel podcast, Brad Winderbaum compares Daredevil Born Again to X-97. It is incredible, it's reviving, and something fans love, but taken in a new direction. These characters have matured, the universe is different than it was, things have changed. He went on further to say, these characters have matured, things have changed, society's changed. Matt and Wilson have changed, and their characters are going to collide in ways we've never seen before. It's no longer enough to try and murder each other. There's a whole game of politics at play. And that's interesting, too, because Fisk will be running for mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, I will talk about that shortly, about the Spider-Man Noir series. That's coming up, too. Zombies, Brad Winderbaum, also via the Marvel podcast, says he's mostly excited for people to see what they've done with the Disney Plus Marvel Zombies. He also talked about Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. He said that via the podcast also, there are twists and turns in Disney Plus, your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man series. Oh, I skipped something. Oh, no, X-97. Did I already talk about that? Oh, I forgot to put this part up above. Sorry. So back to X-97 news. Brad Winderbaum also said that we're well on our way to creating something that hits the heights of the first season. I know the first season is an emotional ride, and that ride continues in a very X-Men fashion in the second season. So back to X-97. Eyes of Wakanda, Winderbaum also said in the podcast about Eyes of Wakanda, it's an awesome show. The action is insane. The storytelling is fantastic. It's both about the history of Wakanda, but also expands into the greater MCU in different time periods. If you're a fan of the movies, this show is going to be a real treat. Now, this is also going to feature an Iron Fist as well, and also some Greek mythology from what I've heard as well. So I'm looking forward to that one. This sounds like it's going to be a pretty cool series, The Eyes of Wakanda, because it's going to explore the history of Wakanda, the past, the time periods, like you said. It's going to be a pretty cool show. Agatha All Along, which we got a trailer this week as well for that. Winderbaum also via the podcast says it's really fun, but it's really scary and it gets quite dramatic. She's an amazing anti-hero. The show lures you in with the fun of Halloween, and before you know it, you're crying. There are deadly stakes. It's a fun ride, but it's a dangerous one. Via Variety, Variety has confirmed Joe Locke will be playing Billy Kaplan and Agatha all along, but they since changed that, so I'm not sure if they got their hands slapped for that. Here from the chat here, I need to get caught up real quick. What are the current live action plans with Wakanda related stuff? There's supposed to be a Black Panther 3, and details are fuzzy, but it might see like a passing of the torch to young T'Challa from Shuri. But there's been conflicting things on whether it's going to be pre or post Secret Wars. RMC says, yes, I'm ready for zombies. And then Matt says, I've changed my hopes for Agatha.
Yeah. I agree with Matt there. I was very skeptical of it because I know they were talking about it being like a musical, and I know RMC and I have both expressed our frustration with musicals and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it looks scary, it looks creepy, and I love that scene where the lady's like talking and she's like, sweetie, and there's like the person like crawling all around like they're possessed and everything like that, you know? So yeah, I'm really curious to see what they do with it. I mean, there still might be a musical episode, but it doesn't seem like the whole show is going to be a musical.
Yeah,
which is great. So
yeah, I'll wait to see what happens. I kind of liked it. You know, my best musical thing I've ever seen, The Simpsons, the Planet of the Apes musical. That was pretty cool. But, you know, that keeps my mind. You know, and I like other musicals as well, so I'm not too worried about it. But RMC said, just praying the singing in Agatha is kept to a minimum. One episode will be okay. Matt says, it wasn't something I really wanted, but that Agatha trailer looks promising. Matt says about Black Panther, I'm happy for Black Panther 3. I love to see them do Intergalactic Empire of Wakanda with T'Challa Jr. though. That's like that. Marvel officially confirms the Agatha release. The trailer came out. They also said this Halloween season, Agatha Harkness returns. Experience the 2-episode premiere September 18th on Disney Plus. So there you go. 2-episode premiere. Now, Matt asked about Spider Noir, so here we are. Nicolas Cage live action Spider-Man Noir will be 8 episodes long, and that was confirmed by Cage in an interview. He described Spider-Man Noir as more of a pop art mashup, like a Liechtenstein painting with some sparkle to it. It's not really people beating people up. Monsters are involved. It follows Nicolas Cage as an aging, down on his luck private investigator in 1930s New York who must confront his past as a city's sole superhero. Lamorne Morris has been cast as Robbie Robertson. Brendan Gleeson cast as the villain, but the character is being kept under wraps, though. Via Daniel RPK, the Sandman will appear in the series, but also will feature Nicolas Cage as Ben Reilly. The character will still have his noir look, but he'll go by Ben Reilly instead of Peter Parker.
Okay.
I have some Bushman news. Marvel Studios is current. Let me go to the chat here real quick. Matt says pop art mashup. Oops, I clicked off it. Pop art mashup. I'm in. Yep, that sounds pretty cool. But Bushman, is being talked about that Marvel Studios has begun casting for the Bushman in the MCU. The character will make his MCU debut in an upcoming project. Now, this screams Midnight Suns or even Moon Knight season 2, because he was, I think he was introduced in Moon Knight as originally introduced, and he's a big Moon Knight villain too. So this screams Midnight Suns or Moon Knight season 2 is coming.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I thought that he was like around in proximity when, you know, Moon Knight becomes Moon Knight, when he makes that deal to accept being the Moon Knight. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I guess that they'll probably put him in Moon Knight season 2. I could see him in Midnight Suns, but I can't imagine him in many other places right now. So, I mean, maybe that's exciting. Maybe we get a Moon Knight season 2. They kind of left that on a cliffhanger, so it seems like, you know, we should definitely get a season 2.
And you're right. He's the one that shot him. He double crossed
in
him
Egypt
or
or whatever. And then I think Mark was like reaching out, and Khonshu reached out to him or something, and that's, you know, if I remember correctly. So, and that's how he became the Moon Knight. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with that character. I know a lot of people thought that Esposito was going to be Bushman for a while.
You know, in the chat.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So, so that'll be really interesting to see what they do with that.
RMC says he's got history with Daredevil 2, doesn't he? I got to double check that one. I possibly. And then Matt says, where'd that go? Moon Knight season 2, please. We need more Moon Knight. Yes, I agree. Let me see. Brave New World. So this is a big week for this one too, because we got a trailer finally. But Sabra is via Daniel RPK. Sabra is still part of the project. It was reported to have a major leading role. The synopsis of the film is, after meeting with the newly elected president Thaddeus Ross, played by Harrison Ford in his MCU debut, who's filling in for the departed, passed away, William Hurt. Sam finds himself in the middle of an international incident. He must discover the reason behind a nefarious global plot before the true mastermind has the entire world seen red. Now, this trailer looks good, and it's in the fashion of the previous Captain America movies. It almost feels like Winter Soldier-esque, you know, the kind of spy film and the high-stakes stuff. We see basically President Ross, you know, clowning Sam, saying is like, you're not Steve Rogers, you know, which Sam obviously isn't. We see with him and Torres flying together in that shot over the ocean, which looks pretty cool. We see a new suit, looks like by Sam, an upgraded suit, especially because he has that helmet on. So I'm betting he has some tech in that helmet. But we also see him go like Mach speed or supersonic as well in the trailer. And we finally get an appearance by Tiamat. Besides the paper clipping in She-Hulk, we actually have that battle, it looks like, in Tiamat's location in this trailer. And then we get that big shot of Red Hulk. So what are your thoughts on the trailer?
I don't know. Like, I thought the trailer was okay. I wasn't like incredibly like super stoked after the trailer for some reason. I don't know why. I think Mackie looks awesome. Like his suit looks great. I think some of the shots looked great, but I think it gave us like a little taste, but it didn't really give us that much.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying, like it was
got
like
you excited, yeah.
yeah, like it was like I'm like okay, I'm more interested, but I don't really think that there was really anything in there that was really like, oh, I didn't expect this to, you know what I'm saying? Like other than like Tiamat potentially appearing in this, like I didn't really seem too shocked. Like we knew Red Hulk was coming, and I think that scene at the end of the trailer was like, oh wow, like he catches the shield and throws it down, kind of type of deal, and I'm like, Sam, like why would you throw the shield at a Hulk? Like that just seems stupid, But yeah, I mean, I'm assuming kind of going into this that I almost feel like they have to at some point recognize the identity of the Red Hulk in this movie as being Ross, just for the simple fact of he's president, and it's gonna be a little bit hard for him to sneak away as the Red Hulk and disappear, and then come back. So
yeah, a couple of things on that. In the trailer, Sam mentions to Ross about your condition. So obviously Sam knows something. Either they're leading to his health condition, or there's always he's already the Red Hulk. And also that shot that Sam's in the lab as well. And then we see that one shot of a funeral. There's a funeral shot real quick too, with a casket and the flag on it. And there's been talk about Liv Tyler will be back as Betty Ross. So I wonder if he does die and he basically stays as Red Hulk after the rest of this time. We also that shot too of the White House basically crumbling. And I wonder if that's when there's an incident or something. And we get the incident, we get shots of the leader. And so I wonder what his role in this is. And still feels like what's going to happen with Giancarlo Esposito in this role as well. Because he's come out and said that people think he's George Washington Bridge. But he's come out and said no one has guessed his character yet.
And that's where I'm confused, because like I don't really know who. I mean, I don't think we know who the villain is of this movie, right? Like so it seems like that's kind of interesting. I feel like obviously there's going to be like utter chaos going on in that, but at the same time, I think Red Hulk is kind of something that we knew was coming, but I imagine that's going to stay around. And I can't help but think back to that scene in Civil War where, like Mackie's talking to Ross. So Sam Wilson's talking to Ross, and he basically tells him, you're no Steve Rogers. But at the same time, Sam Wilson and a few other people at the end of Civil War were stuck in the raft, and Steve Rogers went in and broke them out. And Ross calls Tony and is freaking out about that, like, Tony, there's a problem. And he's like, oh, hang on, I'm going to put you on hold. And he puts him on, and he's like, no, Tony, don't. And then he puts him on hold, lets him get out. So it's like, I don't know if there's some sort of maybe animosity towards Sam Wilson, maybe at the same time, because like Ross, like, he makes that line about I'm trying to put Captain America kind of like back into swing of things, but
to make him like an official military position or asset or something like that, or
yeah. But at the same time, I almost feel like that's one of those things where he's like trying to maybe do that so he can eventually be like, oh, like maybe Captain America's outdated and we got this Red Hulk guy over here that like, and it's like Ross like pumping himself up or something. But yeah, I mean, like that was my first thought watching this trailer about Civil War and thinking about that. And I was like, wow, like Ross like has kind of come full circle on Sam Wilson, because he was trapped in the raft at one point, and now he's like, I want you as Captain America kind of back in the swing of things with the government. So I'll be really interested. I hope we get more trailers kind of moving forward. I feel like, it gave us a taste, but I wasn't really well fed, I guess, for lack of a better term, after watching that trailer. So I'm excited, but I just want to kind of know more. And I would like to kind of know who's going to be the villain of this, because it seems like it's Esposito, but, I don't think that he'll probably be the only antagonist in this movie.
I don't think the leader is part of it, because they have the whole line about the world power being reshaped and that kind of stuff. So it almost feels like Esposito and possibly the leader working together, or Esposito's working with Ross behind the scenes to destabilize things, that kind of thing. Yeah, but I definitely, it does have that kind of who's really behind the scenes type of thing and who's doing this stuff. I also wonder, too, who's going to come to Sam's aid besides Torres, right? I don't expect Bucky in this film at all. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some hint of John Walker.
Yeah, maybe a
I don't.
Hulk, maybe like She-Hulk or something.
She-Hulk could be another one we could see.
Mm-hmm.
What if we see Banner in this movie
Mm-hmm.
as well? So I'm trying to figure out who else is going to help Sam, because Sam alone in Torres is not taking down a Hulk.
No, no,
Especially if
and
there's other gamma creatures in this film too, by result of the leader's experiments.
yeah, and you remember back like in the original like handful of phases, it was always like questioning who were the other heroes that were going to potentially appear in this movie. Like if it was like, I remember when Winter Soldier came out, I think everybody was like, is Tony Stark going to be in this film? Like, and that's kind of, I think, where I'm at on this one, which is like, I feel like somebody else has to appear,
Yeah.
right? Like, it feels like not that Torres isn't good, but it just feels like with Torres, it's just like he's the new Falcon, and that's great. He's kind of like, this isn't the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, this is Captain America and the Falcon, kind of,
Yeah.
But like at the same time, like they're kind of out of their depth if they're dealing with like
Yeah.
gamma monsters. You know what I'm saying? Like
Exactly. And also you think too, in Winter Soldier, when we first got the glimpse of Sam, we had Black Widow, we had Maria Hill, and we had Samuel Jackson, Nick Fury, and we had Nick Fury in that film. So they kind of had a team there, right? Plus we had the people who wanted to be on the. We had Agent Carter.
I aim to please.
Oh, be quiet. Plus we had Agent Carter on the side of the good side of Shield there. So yeah, it's got to be She-Hulk in this one. I think the three of them could probably do it in this film. Especially if there's gamma stuff in here, it's got to be She-Hulk. It's probably going to be like one of those things where, because in She-Hulk, she had no introduction to any of those people on this piece, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see kind of like we saw at the end of Shang-Chi, where we kind of have Banner and Captain Marvel and Wong kind of on the comms. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some kind of call like that in this film, and it's with Banner, and Banner's like, "Hey, I got someone that can help you out." That type of thing. So that's something to watch here. Let's look at the chat here. Okay, so this is a good thing here. RMC thinks that he fakes his death after Bradley shoots him. So we see Isaiah Bradley in the film, and it almost seems like he gets activated by something, whether it's something that's in the room where he maybe got taken and brainwashed, or back in his earlier days, he got brainwashed and someone reactivated him, a la Bucky style. So that's a good one here. RMC also says that line, you may be Captain America, but you're no Steve Rogers. Matt says Ross was probably just trying to control Sam. He wanted forgiven Sam for siding with Steve against the Sokovia Accords, but also too, look what Sam just did in the series since then, though, and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So yeah, but I can still see the animosity right there, Matt. Matt also says it'd be good. It would be a good film to give She-Hulk a big screen introduction before Avengers 5. Yes. Yes, completely agree. RMC says that line where Ross said you maybe. Oh, wait, hold on, I went to the wrong thing. Oh, he just clarified it more. The line where Ross said you may be Captain America, but you're no longer Steve Rogers, and Sam says you're right, I'm not. He's agreeing about that's important about She-Hulk showing up, I think. Here's a good one by Matt too. Another one. I wonder if Scar will get a mention. Visually, he was terrible in She-Hulk, but he's out there, and he was a great character in the comics before he went nuts. That's a good point right there. We did see Scar at the end of She-Hulk. I also wonder too, do you think if they pull She-Hulk in and Banner and Scar showing up at the end of She-Hulk, could we get Matt in here as well? Daredevil. Or do you think that's too much?
Probably too much.
Yeah.
I like, I almost feel like we got two problems, which is like if Banner pops back in, then it's going to be like Ross versus, the Hulk all over again, Red Hulk versus Green Hulk, and I don't know if that'll really happen. Plus with Scar, it seemed like he kind of brought like his son back, and I imagine Bruce will probably be like, off doing
something,
with him or whatever, training him, doing whatever. And so I feel like I think She-Hulk is probably where we'll probably end up going with that or something. And this is going to probably be one of those moments where we have like, I would hope a Hulk versus Hulk fight, and then Red Hulk gets angry, he lights on fire a little bit, and suddenly this is like this is a different Hulk than
Yeah.
we're used to, kind of type of thing. So I almost wonder if the leader is going to be somewhat responsible for Red Hulk. Like,
Yeah.
like he's like, hey, like maybe like the leader is like one of those, like something happens to Ross, like with Bradley, and then they're like, hey, we got this guy that might be able to do this procedure to save, Ross's life. And it's the leader that like does something that, does this thing to him and then turns him into Red Hulk. And
Or
that would be really interesting.
so a couple things here. Remember the comment between Black Widow and Ross in the Black Widow movie about his ticker or something, or was it one of the films where he's like two different heart surgeries? So I wonder if that's how he fixes death, where the heart thing comes up an issue again, and that's how he dies. The other thing too is, remember he had the super soldier serum that he gave to Blonsky to become Abomination, and do we see Abomination in this film, or does he come for an ally? Another option. I definitely think Banner shows up as a phone call, but not in the movie as a big role. I wonder if Ross is experimenting on himself with the serum that he had, and something goes wrong, and he goes to the leader for help, and that's how he becomes Red Hulk, or by some reaction of him experimenting on himself to kind of fix himself, becomes the Red Hulk. Matt asks, what does Ross get shot with? That's a good question. Is the shot how we get Red Hulk? So we see that where Isaiah shoots him or shoots at him. And I also wonder too if like that's how the leader does something to Bradley to control him. Also from the chat here from Matt, if any of the action happens in NYC, it makes sense to show Matt and more so Mayor Fisk. That's a good point. I did have one great idea regarding Red Hulk. Let us know what that idea is, Matt. RMC says Bradley shoots Ross through bulletproof glass in the trailer, then jumps out the window. Appears Bradley has a Winter Soldier-like brainwashing. Something activated in him. Was it that music? It could be. And I also wonder, too, if that was something when he got... Remember, he filled in for Captain America, and there was experimentations on him as well that he said in Falcon the Winter Soldier. So I wonder if that activation is from that point, and the leader found out, or something happened to him, the leader in between Falcon the Winter Soldier and this movie, where he gets activated. Let me see.
I'll just throw this out there. One of the off-screen fights that I wish we had on screen was when, Bradley told Bucky told basically Sam Wilson that him and Bucky had met before, and he ripped Bucky's arm off and he escaped. Like, that would be so awesome to see a young Bradley fight the Winter Soldier.
Like a flashback. Yeah.
Yeah, just like a little brief, like 3-minute flashback or something like that. I would love to see that. So
RMC says, don't know when whoever did it got to him. Was it when he was imprisoned years ago? Yep, same thing, and leaded it recently. That's the thing I'm asking too as well.
Maybe that's one of those things where it was like, when he was in prison and being sent out in the field, maybe that was something that was done underneath S.H.I.E.L.D., and S.H.I.E.L.D. had Hydra that was in them all that time. So maybe somebody in Hydra like got to him that was, you know what I'm saying? Like,
and then Black Widow
like
dumped all that data on the internet, and that's how the leader found it.
Yeah, so maybe something like that, I'm not sure. So
in the comics, when we first saw Hulk, they misled the reader into thinking that it wasn't Ross. So what if the MCU Red Hulk ends up not actually being Ross, but GW Bridge? Yeah, what if Gino Carlo is the Red Hulk? That'd be interesting too. Another thing we didn't think about too, as in their ally, there's a lot of young Avengers talk, right? We got a glimpse of the Patriot, Bradley's grandson in Falcon the Winter Soldier. Elijah, yes. Could we see Elijah as an ally in this film? As well, or maybe a post-credit scene where, because remember at the end of the Marvels we saw Kamala recruiting Kate. What if we get another post-credit scene of them recruiting Elijah?
I mean, he could also be like a natural-born super soldier too. Like one of those.
The bloodlines, kind of like Ryan and Homelander
Boys
type thing. Yeah.
So
I wonder if we'll see Elijah at all in this film, or if we see him in a post-credits for being recruited for Young Avengers. But yeah, definitely interesting, and it seems like there's I think Ross might be compromised too and trying to do some stuff, and that's why the whole world power thing changing. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely another level of spy espionage type film going on here, in the similar fashion to Captain America films.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Moving on, Marvel Animation will have their own panel at D23 in August, showcasing new details and first looks for Eyes of Wakanda, What If Season 3, X-Men 97, and Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. The animation will have its own panel separate from the main Marvel Studios showcase. Remember, we
Mm-hmm.
have Marvel, we have Marvel TV, we have Marvel Animation. So that makes sense. They're doing different panels because they have 3 divisions now that are official at Marvel. I also
Mm-hmm.
wonder too if we're gonna get any new announcements for remakes, like Spider-Man 98, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Avengers Assemble.
Oh,
You
that would be
know,
great.
I would love to see those things come back. Like I would love to see them have that theme song. The world is something like Avengers Assemble. That whole song. I would love to hear that song come out and them talk about that. But that'd be cool. I hope they announce some more stuff because I think they need to up on their animation game. They've done well with What If and X-97, but don't get complacent. Keep pumping the animation stuff. Yep, that song's in your head now.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I was doing.
Um, from Matt here, referring to Brave New World. Yeah, post-credit scene with Elijah being recruited, and this time it's Kate Bishop waiting in his home. That'd be a good one.
Mhm.
RMC says, I forgot about 98. Especially with Spider-Man showing up in X-97. They cannot do it. I also wouldn't mind seeing Fantastic Four redone as well. That original Fantastic Four cartoon, I love that cartoon. The theme song gets stuck in your head. I would love for
Mhm.
them to continue that as well. Um, Matt says, I want to see Deadpool Corpse get an animated show. Um, RMC says, I hope they do it. The split divisions to streamline everything and make it easier as far as more animation. And yes, Matt, there is a Hitmonkey season 2 coming soon as well. I had to double check the dates on that one. Another thing too is that Marvel Studios will be at San Diego Comic Con, Hall H panel, July 26th, 6 p.m. Pacific time. The panel will be 1 hour long. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Fantastic Forecast, if we see a Thunderbolts trailer, some more content from Brave New World, Agatha content. I'm trying to think what else is coming out this year, or is that it? I don't expect them to announce much that we don't know already. I don't think they're gonna make that mistake again. I could
Mhm.
see them announcing stuff to fill the gaps in the schedule that we know already, like possibly Shang-Chi 2,
Mhm.
Doctor Strange 3. They could have officially announced if it's going to be Secret Wars for the film, for the One Avengers film, their direction with Kang possibly. But other than that, I don't expect very much future, stuff. I could see a Blade thing possibly.
Mhm.
Um, and then possibly maybe a joint announcement with Sony, but that's a Sony thing for Spider-Man 4, so I don't know. But yeah, we'll see about that. Um, okay, almost done here. Time Bandits. Did you ever watch the movie as a kid?
I don't
The
think I
film?
did.
Oh,
I
I
don't
love
think I
that
did.
film. I show my kids it. So there's an Apple TV Plus series coming of Time
Okay.
Bandits. July 24th. Lisa Kudrow leads the Band of Thieves in Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement's Apple TV Plus series, a TV adaptation of Terry Gilliam's beloved 1981 fantasy feature. Jermaine Clement, Ian Morris, and Taika Waititi executive produced, write, and direct select episodes, with Clement and Morris serving as co-showrunners. Now, I think this project fits Taika well in the way he does things. I
Mhm.
love the film. I'm hoping the series is good. I like the trailer as well, so I'm looking forward to this. Um, RMC has a question here. When do they announce trademark names for movies? It's in the beginning of the year. I'm just curious. They don't really usually announce trademark names. Basically, the people look behind the scenes what they do and what they file, and then those get out there in the media. I don't think Marvel actually has an announcement for those ones.
Mhm.
Um, Matt says, "Oh, come on, click on here." Feige's got a lot of backpedaling to do after the last Hall H appearance. Yeah, that's why I don't think we'll get a lot of stuff future forwarding because that was last time we saw Mahershala Ali and the whole Blade announcement was last time, and that is still trying to figure out what's going on with that film. So yeah, I don't see a lot of stuff. happening there. Bag of Time Bandits is going to be a 10-episode series with a 2-episode premiere.
Okay.
Shrek news. Shrek 5 is coming. Set for July 1st, 2026. Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, and Cameron Diaz are returning. Antonio Banderas' return as Puss in Boots has yet to be confirmed. There is no director announced yet. So, I like the Shrek films. They're fun.
I feel like Mike Myers has kind of just disappeared too in like previous years, so I guess it's nice to see him come back for something. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, like for Shrek. So
Minions 3 is coming to theaters on June 30th, 2027. And last thing, we have some Paramount Plus news. So at first, it was reported that Max and Paramount Plus may merge in the future as Warner Brothers and Paramount have expressed interest. But now it's being reported that Skydance and Paramount have reached an agreement to merge. And so I don't know what's going to happen there, but it looks like Paramount's getting moved around again after they just did the whole thing with Discovery Plus, and that was them, right? Paramount, Discovery Plus, all that kind of stuff.
I'm not too sure,
Okay.
to be honest.
But I know Paramount just did some more stuff, but so we'll see what happens there.
I feel like a lot of these streaming services are going to end up consolidating because there's
Yeah.
just so many of them out there, and at this point, it's like we're getting as many cable services as there's like channels on cable now. You know, so
At least though with the streaming stuff, it's easy to cancel, and you're not locked into a contract. So that's nice about streaming because you can do it a la carte. You can pick what you want to watch. You can bundle them. If you don't want to watch something, you can cancel it. So that's the nice thing. From the chat here, Map says the first Puss in Boots was the best film of the Shrek franchise. And then RMC says Disney is waiting for that merger, so they will acquire Paramount too. They need to acquire Sony Entertainment. I'm just kidding. Anyways, that's all we have today. Any other thoughts before we close things down?
No. Looking forward to The Boys for next. I guess the finale, the final episode, and yeah, can't wait to see where that goes and leads into season 5. So,
and just a reminder, next time we stream on the 21st, it should be a double header day, as Alex and I will be talking about The Boys season finale, but we will have Mr. Andy Steed back to talk about the Deadpool preview, and then our following episode we'll be back for the Deadpool review. So looking forward to having Andy back. I don't think we had him back since before the holidays last year. So we're looking forward to it. Also, too, for those who listen to the show, we typically are able to stream on the Facebook page as well. But Facebook recently changed the requirements to be able to stream. So please, on Facebook, if you're not following the page, follow the page. That way we can stream back to the page. If you want to, follow us today, you can watch the stream on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Kick, and Trovo. If you listen to the audio only, please. Oh, I'm sorry, and YouTube also we stream as well. I share the YouTube link to the group. If you listen to the audio only on your podcast apps, please give us a review, a thumbs up, whatever. We're open to suggestions as well. So with that being said, thank you for joining us today, RMC and Matt. We'll be back next week with a double header, and so have a good Sunday.
see you guys next time.